You ever feel like you're doing everything okay, but somehow stuck? Like there's this invisible wall between who you are and who you could be? It's not failure that holds most people back. It's the slow, quiet drift of routine, the sleepwalking through days that all start to look the same. You wake up, you go through the motions, and deep down, there's this low whisper asking, is this it? Most ignore it. Some numb it. A few listen. What if I told you that the gap between the life you have and the life you dream about isn't talent, or luck, or timing, but one tiny shift you can make before the sun even rises tomorrow? One habit so small, it looks like nothing from the outside, but it rewires the entire way you live from within. And no, I'm not talking about waking up at 5 a.m. or writing in a gratitude journal. Those are tactics. This is deeper. This is about ownership. The moment you stop waiting for something to change and decide you are the change. You see, the people we admire, the ones we call successful, resilient, driven, they didn't stumble on some secret formula. They simply refused to surrender control of their days. They stopped outsourcing their energy to moods, scrolling, or the next motivational video. Instead, they decided to own their time like it was currency and spend it only on what moved them forward. They didn't wait for motivation to knock. They moved first. They built discipline not because they loved the grind, but because they finally understood the cost of drifting. Jim Rohn once said, either you run the day, or the day runs you. That's not a quote to memorize. It's a truth to live by. Because the reality is, every single day is a vote for who you're becoming or for who you're staying. You don't need a grand transformation. You don't need the stars to align. You just need to reclaim 1 hour, one decision, one choice to stop running in circles and start moving with purpose. Most people are passive participants in their own lives. They react, they respond, they get through. But those who change their story, they create, they design, they lead themselves, moment by moment, through chaos, doubt, fatigue, and keep going. Not because it's easy, but because they've tasted what it feels like to live deliberately, and there's no going back. Let me be clear, this isn't a motivational high. This isn't some pump-up talk that fades after 10 minutes. This is about rewiring how you show up when no one's watching. The real shift happens in silence when you say, I don't feel like it, and do it anyway. That moment, right there, that's the line between the life that slips through your fingers and the one you finally grab hold of. So, if you've been waiting for the perfect time, this is it. Not because this moment is special, but because it's the only one that's real. Yesterday is gone. Tomorrow's not promised. But today? Today is still in your hands. And the question is, what will you do with it? Now, let me show you how one simple habit, done with intention, can set your entire life on a different path. Here's a brutal truth nobody wants to hear. If you wait to feel like it, you'll wait forever. We've been sold a beautiful lie that motivation is the spark that starts the fire. But in the real world, it's usually the other way around. Action is the flint, and discipline? That's the hand that strikes. Think about it. How often have you had big dreams while lying in bed, feeling inspired after a video or a quote, only to do nothing the next morning? That's motivation. It visits like a gust of wind, blows your curtains wide open, and disappears just as fast. You don't build a life on gusts. You build it brick by brick, with hands that move even when the heart doesn't want to. Discipline is quiet. It doesn't shout. It doesn't post. It just shows up. Every day. It laces your shoes when your mind says, stay in. It opens the laptop when you're exhausted. It walks you through dark seasons with no guarantee, no applause, no cheerleaders, just the stubborn belief that showing up matters, especially when you don't feel ready. Here's the thing. The people who've achieved real change in their lives didn't get there because they were more motivated than you. They got there because they made a deal with themselves. I don't have to feel like it to do it. That's not just a mindset. That's a muscle. And every time you train it, every time you follow through when your mood says no, you grow stronger. We live in a culture obsessed with feelings. Listen to your energy. Don't force it. Flow with your vibe. And yes, rest matters. Listening to yourself matters. But when listening becomes an excuse for inaction, it becomes a trap. Discipline frees you from that trap. because it reminds you that your emotions are temporary, but your commitments define your direction. Discipline is the bridge between intentions and results. It's not glamorous. It won't go viral, but it works. While others search for the next big idea or wait for lightning to strike, disciplined people quietly move the needle, one boring, necessary task at a time. They build momentum in silence. They don't need fireworks, they trust the process. This doesn't mean becoming a machine. It means treating your time with respect. It means showing up for your goals the way you show up for others, on time, prepared, and present. It means remembering that your future isn't waiting at the end of some magical inspiration, but on the other side of consistent effort. So the next time you catch yourself saying, "I'll do it when I'm ready," stop. Ready isn't coming. Do it unready. Do it uncomfortable. Do it scared. The habit you're trying to build, the life you're trying to live, it begins the moment you act in spite of how you feel. And once you've done that enough times, something changes. The resistance gets weaker. The excuses get quieter. And you start to trust yourself in a way motivation could never offer. Because now, you're not just hoping for change. You're becoming the kind of person who creates it, one quiet, disciplined step at a time. And that leads us to the next truth that few understand. It's not about doing more. It's about doing what actually matters. There's a difference between being busy and being in control. Most people confuse motion with progress. Their calendars are full, their notifications never stop, and their days fly by in a blur of tasks. But when the dust settles, they're not actually any closer to the life they want. Because they haven't mastered their time. They've just filled it. Time isn't something you manage like a spreadsheet. It's something you honor like a sacred resource. You don't find time for what matters, you carve it out. You protect it. You defend it against the trivial, the distracting, the loud but unimportant demands that scream for your attention every hour. You see, every hour you live is a silent vote for the life you're building. And here's the kicker. Time doesn't care what your intentions were. It only rewards your decisions. If you spend your energy bouncing between emails, endless scrolling, and half-finished tasks, don't be surprised when years pass and nothing deep has changed. Successful people don't have more time. They just use it like it costs something because it does. Every minute spent on something meaningless is a minute stolen from your future. And when you understand that, you stop trying to do it all. You start doing what matters. You eliminate. You prioritize. You learn to say no without guilt. There's a strange power in becoming unavailable to distractions. When you stop treating your time like it's free, other people start treating it with respect too. Your energy becomes focused. Your schedule becomes intentional. Your results become exponential. This isn't about hustle. It's about clarity. You don't need to grind yourself into the ground. You need to become ruthless with what deserves your attention. 1 hour of deep focus on something meaningful is worth more than 10 hours of scattered busyness. Mastering time means building your day around your values, not just your tasks. It means designing your environment so you don't have to constantly fight temptation. It means treating every block of time like it has a purpose, because it does. Time, once spent, never returns. You don't get a refund. You just get a result. When you start living like that, intentionally, selectively, fully present, you begin to notice something strange. You actually feel less rushed, less overwhelmed, because you're no longer pulled in 100 directions. You're driving the day, not dragged behind it. So stop trying to squeeze more into your day. Start cutting out the noise. Choose depth over distraction, meaning over motion. And when you do, you'll realize it's not that you never had enough time. It's that you were giving it away to things that didn't deserve it. Now let's dig deeper into the real thief of progress, the habits we don't even realize are sabotaging us. Some prisons don't have walls. They have routines, familiar patterns, a comfortable kind of failure you've grown used to. You wake up, you scroll, you tell yourself you'll start tomorrow. You chase tasks that look productive but lead nowhere. You waste the most precious currency you'll ever own, your time, on habits that have quietly stolen years from your life. And you don't even notice, because they're dressed as normal. This is the trap. The slow death of progress isn't caused by catastrophic mistakes, it's caused by repetition. Doing the same easy thing every day, expecting a different outcome, but secretly knowing deep down, nothing will change unless you do. And here's the hardest part. Most of the habits that are killing your momentum aren't evil. They're just easy. Checking your phone every few minutes doesn't feel dangerous. But it's not about the seconds, it's about the fragmentation of your focus. Hitting snooze one more time doesn't feel like a big deal. But it's not just about waking up late. It's about starting your day with a broken promise to yourself. These habits don't shout. They whisper, "You deserve to rest. You can do it later. This little distraction won't hurt." And slowly, without even realizing it, you begin to live a life of quiet hesitation. A life built on almosts. Almost started. Almost committed. Almost changed. If that feels familiar, you're not broken. You're just stuck in a loop your mind is labeled safe. But safety is often the enemy of growth. What you need is not another motivational boost. What you need is a break in the pattern. A conscious, intentional disruption. It begins with awareness. You cannot fix what you refuse to face. Watch yourself. See what you do when you're tired, when you're bored, when you're anxious. That's where the truth lives. And then, you build micro-resistance. One tiny refusal at a time. You silence the snooze. You close the extra tab. You say no to what doesn't align. These small moments, done consistently, start to rewire the story your habits have been telling you. They whisper a new message. I'm in charge now. Breaking free doesn't happen in one big heroic leap. It happens in the quiet moments when you choose discomfort over delay. When you act before you're ready. When you replace maybe later with let's go now. And eventually, something shifts. You start to notice you're showing up more. That the mental fog begins to lift. That you don't flinch as much when things get hard. Because you've trained for this. You've unlearned the softness that kept you stuck. You've learned to sit with the discomfort of growth. The old you, the one who coasted through mornings and numbed out every evening, didn't fail because they were weak. They failed because they were unchallenged. That version of you got you this far. But now, it's time to let them go. Because just beyond the habits that used to hold you back, there's a version of you who's been waiting to be unleashed. And to become that person, there's one final truth you must face. You don't need a perfect plan. You just need to start. Here's the secret no one tells you. Readiness is a myth. That perfect moment you're waiting for? It never arrives. The stars don't align. The fear doesn't disappear. And clarity rarely shows up before commitment. The truth is, most people never start not because they're incapable, but because they've been tricked into thinking they have to feel ready first. But action doesn't come after confidence. Action builds confidence. You don't become courageous by waiting. You become courageous by doing the thing while afraid. That trembling hand? That racing heart? That voice in your head saying, "What if I fail?" That is the process. That's the sign you're walking towards something that matters. The people you admire didn't have it all figured out. They just took the first step anyway. Jim Rohn once said, "Don't wait until the conditions are perfect to begin. Beginning makes the conditions perfect." It's not just a clever quote, it's a map. You create momentum by moving, not by overthinking, not by researching one more thing, not by planning yourself into paralysis, but by showing up today, as you are. And no, it won't be smooth. You'll stumble. You'll second guess. You might even want to quit. But that messy beginning? That's gold. That's the proof you're in the arena. That you're no longer living in theory. That you've shifted from someday to now. Think of a rocket. The most energy it ever uses is during the launch. Not cruising. Not landing. Launching. That initial push is the hardest. But once you break the gravity of doubt, things start to flow. And you'll look back and wonder why you waited so long to begin. So stop asking if you're ready. Ask if you're willing. Willing to be a beginner. Willing to look silly. Willing to not be the best, but to be in the game. Because the real failure isn't falling short, it's never starting at all. If you've been standing on the edge of an idea, a decision, a change, you don't need more time. You need one small act of defiance. Against the voice that says not yet. Against the habit of hesitation. Against the lie that your dream isn't worth the risk. You don't build a new life by waiting for permission. You build it by saying, "I'm starting anyway." And as soon as you do, something unlocks. You gain clarity with every move. You gain power with every choice. You begin to feel a pulse that's been missing, a quiet, steady rhythm that says, "I'm becoming who I was meant to be." And now that you've begun, the path ahead changes shape. It's no longer about waiting. It's about staying in motion, about staying committed. Which brings us to the next piece, where true growth begins: discipline over motivation. Motivation is loud. It screams in the morning, fades by afternoon, and disappears by nightfall. It rides the highs. It crashes with the lows. It makes promises it rarely keeps. That's why so many people live in cycles: intense beginnings, quiet disappearances, and a return to zero. But discipline? Discipline is quiet. It doesn't shout. It doesn't sparkle. It whispers, "Do it anyway." When the fire is gone, when you're tired, uninspired, overwhelmed, discipline is what shows up. It's the decision to move forward even when your feelings beg you not to. It's not glamorous. It's not sexy. But it's sacred. Motivation waits for a reason. Discipline moves without one. Let's be honest. There will be days when everything in you resists. When your bed is warm and your dreams feel far. When doubt sits heavy on your chest and your goals feel laughable. It is in those moments, not the inspired ones, that the real work happens. Discipline isn't fueled by excitement. It's fueled by standards. You don't show up because you feel like it. You show up because it's who you've chosen to become. It's brushing your teeth even when you're exhausted. It's writing the page when the words won't come. It's walking when you'd rather scroll. It's doing the thing, not because it's fun, but because it matters. Here's the hard truth. If you only move when you're motivated, you'll never go far. Because motivation is a guest, it visits. But discipline? Discipline lives with you. It becomes a part of your identity. And over time, the world begins to shift around that discipline. The tiny tasks compound. The boring repetitions build skill. The ignored temptations create clarity. And slowly, without fireworks, you become the kind of person who finishes what they start. You don't need a motivational quote every morning. You need a commitment to yourself, to your future, to the version of you that exists beyond this moment. Discipline is how you bridge the gap between who you are and who you're becoming. It is not restrictive, it is liberating, because it frees you from the chaos of mood, emotion, and impulse. It gives you a rhythm, a backbone, a path. So the next time you don't feel like it, don't ask if you're motivated. Ask if you're disciplined. Ask if your dream is worth the discomfort. Ask if you're willing to sacrifice these for excellence. And when you say yes, when you act not out of emotion, but intention, you build a power that no feeling can touch. A power that rewrites your story, one choice at a time. Because the truth is, success isn't something you chase. It's something you become. And the path to becoming starts with the simple, often unglamorous, repeated choice to show up every day, no matter what. And once you're in motion, once you've anchored yourself in discipline, then the next question becomes not how much you can do, but how wisely you use your time. They say time is money, but that's a lie. You can always make more money. You will never make more time. Once it's gone, it's gone. And yet, so many of us spend it like we have an unlimited supply. We scroll, we wait, we drift. And by the time we realize what's been lost, it's already too late to get it back. The successful don't have more hours in a day. They simply refuse to waste them. They treat time like sacred ground, unforgiving and finite. They don't let urgency disguise itself as importance. They don't confuse being busy with being effective. They choose, ruthlessly. The truth? You are not overwhelmed because you have too much to do. You are overwhelmed because you're doing too many things that don't matter. Noise, distractions, obligations you never truly chose. And somewhere in the middle of that chaos, your real life, the one you're meant to live, gets drowned out. Time management isn't about color-coded calendars or productivity hacks. It's about clarity, knowing what matters most and eliminating what doesn't. It's not about doing more. It's about doing less better, sharper, with full presence. Every yes you give is a no to something else. Every hour you spend is an hour you're not getting back. So the question becomes, are you spending your time in alignment with your values? Or are you burning it trying to impress people who wouldn't notice if you disappeared tomorrow? Mastering time begins when you realize it's not something you have, it's something you direct. Every single day, you are given a silent gift, 86,400 seconds. No matter who you are. And what you do with that gift determines whether you live on purpose or just pass time waiting for someday. The people who rise don't hustle harder. They focus sharper. They protect their mornings. They defend their evenings. They turn their phone off when it's time to think. They say no even when it's uncomfortable. Because they know time isn't just about productivity, it's about power. Time is your most honest mirror. It shows you what you truly value. If you want to change your life, change your calendar. Don't just track what you do, question why you're doing it. Does it move you closer to who you want to become or deeper into who you've been settling for? You don't find time. You make time. For health, for creation, for silence, for movement, for building, not reacting. And the more intentional you become, the more powerful you feel. Not because you're doing more, but because you stopped giving your life away in pieces. So if life feels out of control, don't start by changing your job or your goals. Start by reclaiming your time. From the things, the people, the patterns that steal it without your permission. Because once you learn how to own your time, you'll realize you are never overwhelmed. You are just disconnected from what truly matters. And once you've taken back your hours, the next battle is staying focused in a world built on distraction. That's where we go next, the war for your attention, and the quiet power of protecting your focus. We live in the noisiest era in human history. Every second, someone somewhere is fighting for your attention. A notification, a headline, a buzz, a beep. They don't want your money first, they want your mind. Because whoever controls your focus controls your life. And let's be real, most people don't even know where their attention is going. They wake up reaching for their phones, get lost in a flood of content, and call it being informed. But by noon, their energy is drained, and they haven't moved an inch toward what matters. Focus isn't about working harder. It's about cutting deeper. It's saying no to the endless scroll. It's turning off the noise, not because you hate the world, but because you've decided your vision is worth protecting. Distraction is the death of progress. Not failure, not mistakes, just noise. Quiet, constant, invisible noise that pulls you 2% away from your path, over and over, until one day you realize you're miles off course. Think about it. How often have you started something with fire in your chest, only to find yourself, hours later, wandering through comments, videos, messages that had nothing to do with your dream? Not because you're lazy, but because the world is engineered to fragment your mind. True focus is rebellion. It's resistance in the age of distraction. It's deciding that your energy is not up for auction, that your goals will not compete with viral videos and someone else's crisis. It's the quiet courage to disconnect, so you can reconnect with your direction. Because here's the truth no one tells you. Your focus is finite. It's not infinite. You can't give it to everything. And if you don't guard it, the world will devour it for you. Focus is a muscle. And like any muscle, it grows through training, through small daily choices, through putting your phone away during deep work, through building spaces where your mind can breathe, through making boredom your ally, not your enemy. It is in the stillness, not the chaos, that your greatest clarity emerges. That's where the best ideas come from, the boldest plans, the most courageous decisions. Focus isn't sterile. It's sacred. It's where you meet the version of you who is fully awake. You don't need more apps. You need more boundaries. You don't need more time. You need fewer distractions. Focus doesn't happen by chance. It's built, moment by moment, by people who refuse to live scattered. And once your focus is protected, once your mind becomes a space of intention instead of interruption, that's when progress accelerates. That's when your vision sharpens. That's when you go from chasing everything to building something that lasts. So if you're tired of feeling behind, maybe it's not about doing more. Maybe it's about doing less with more presence, more purpose, more clarity. And that leads us to a truth most ignore. Behind every massive transformation is not a dramatic breakthrough, but a quiet, repeated action. a simple shift, a habit. And in the next step, we dive into that exact idea. How one small habit, done consistently, can change your life forever. Big change doesn't start with fireworks. It doesn't begin with some cinematic moment or grand announcement. It starts quietly, almost invisibly, in the corner of your day where no one's watching, and you choose, just once, to do something different, something better. Maybe it's waking up 10 minutes earlier. Maybe it's putting the phone down during breakfast. Maybe it's writing one sentence in your journal when everything in you says, "This doesn't matter." But it does. Because that one sentence? That's momentum. And momentum is everything. People wait for motivation like it's some mystical force that will strike when the stars align. But real growth doesn't care about your mood. It shows up in routines, in boring consistency, in choosing the better path even when it feels like no one will notice. Especially then. You see, your life is not shaped by the big days. It's sculpted by the ordinary ones. The days when nothing special happens, but you chose to show up anyway. That's the day change begins. Not with a scream, but with a whisper. Do it anyway. We tend to underestimate the power of small. We want overnight success, viral results, instant feedback. But life doesn't work like that. Growth is quiet. It's humble. It's what happens in the background while you're simply doing the work. One tiny shift, done consistently, reshapes your identity. Not just your actions, your belief in who you are. Because the moment you do something new, no matter how small, you send a message to your brain. We're not who we used to be. That's powerful. That's transformation. You want to change your life? Stop trying to change everything. Pick one thing. Just one. And build around it like a fire. Protect it. Water it. Repeat it. And watch what happens. James Clear once said, "Every action you take is a vote for the person you want to become." That vote might be small, but cast it enough times, and it becomes your reality. Not by accident, but by design. The trick is to fall in love with the process, with the dull moments, with the repetition, with the simple act of showing up. Because if you can learn to love that, you become unstoppable. Not because you're the fastest, but because you're the one who didn't quit. Success isn't dramatic. It's methodical. It's boring. It's someone doing what they said they'd do long after the excitement wore off. And suddenly, what once felt impossible becomes your new normal. You don't need a massive plan. You don't need a full reinvention. You need one small, intentional choice. Repeated, without apology, without explanation. Just you, doing the work, and letting the results stack in silence. And when the habit becomes who you are, you'll look back one day and realize that little thing, that choice you almost dismissed, it changed everything. But here's the twist: building a habit is one thing. Holding on to it in the face of setbacks, doubt, and the urge to go back to comfort, that's the next challenge. That's the battleground. And that's exactly where we go next. How to stay the course when everything in you wants to quit. At first, it's exciting. You're fueled by the spark of a new beginning. You feel unstoppable, like this time, finally, it's going to work. But then comes the middle, the gray, the not-so-pretty part of change where progress is invisible and the old voices start whispering again. This is pointless. You're wasting your time. You'll never keep this up. And just like that, the doubt seeps in, not as a storm, but as a slow leak. Drip by drip, it questions everything you've built. And if you're not careful, it convinces you that all your effort is just another dead end. But here's the truth most people won't tell you. Doubt isn't a sign to stop. It's a sign you're on the edge of growth. You've left your comfort zone. You're building something unfamiliar. Of course, your mind wants to retreat. That's what it does when it feels unsafe. Your brain isn't built for progress. It's built for survival. And to the survival brain, change looks dangerous, even if it's good. So when the doubt comes, don't panic. Recognize it. Welcome it. But don't obey it. This is the moment where most give in. They quit 3 feet from breakthrough. They undo weeks of effort because one voice said, "Maybe this isn't working." Let me ask you this. How would your life be different if you pushed through just one more week? One more day? What if you stopped judging the process too early? What if the transformation was already happening, just not loud enough for you to notice yet? Growth is slow. It's quiet. It's invisible until it's not. And the middle is always messy. That's not failure. That's the forge. The place where people either burn out or rise stronger. And rising doesn't mean doing more. It means not giving up. It means holding your ground when everything inside you says, go back. It means sitting in the discomfort and choosing to keep showing up, not because it's easy, but because you've decided this version of you is worth the struggle. Progress isn't measured in leaps. It's measured in your ability to stay. Stay when the results aren't instant. Stay when the old habits call you back. Stay when no one else sees the work you're doing and you're not even sure if it matters. But it does. Because every day you stay the course, you weaken the grip of your past. You chip away at the old story. And slowly, you write a new one. A story of resilience. Of quiet power. Of someone who didn't let the doubt win this time. So if today feels hard, if the progress feels invisible, remember this. Doubt doesn't mean stop. It means keep going. Because just beyond the noise, just past the fog, is a version of you who stayed long enough to become undeniable. And when you stay long enough, something shifts. Your identity catches up. The habit becomes part of your rhythm. The change feels less forced and more like home. And that's when you realize you're not just changing what you do, you're changing who you are. Which brings us to the heart of this journey. It was never about discipline versus laziness. It was about identity. And in the next part, we explore the most powerful transformation of all, the moment you stop chasing change and start becoming it. The real shift doesn't happen when you force yourself into a new routine. It happens when you no longer recognize the person who needed forcing. When the behavior isn't a task on a checklist, but a reflection of who you've become. That's the moment it sticks. That's when the change becomes permanent. You see, we've been told to chase results. To wake up earlier, to hustle harder, to build habits that make us look productive. But the outer layers mean nothing if your identity still whispers the old story. Because no matter how disciplined your actions are, if you still see yourself as the person who fails, you will sabotage every bit of progress you've made. The real work? It's not changing what you do. It's rewriting who you believe you are. Identity is a quiet puppeteer. It pulls every string in your life. The way you speak to yourself, the choices you make, the goals you set or don't. And most of us are living inside identities that were never ours to begin with. We inherited them, absorbed them, not convinced by circumstances or criticism that this is all we'll ever be. But you are not your past. You are not the version of you who quit 5 times. You are not the voice in your head that says, you're not enough. That voice is scared. It's outdated. It's the echo of someone who didn't know how powerful you could become. Real transformation begins the moment you say, I am no longer available for the story that keeps me small. And then you act accordingly, not just once, but consistently. Until one day, without even realizing it, you respond to a challenge differently. You show up without the old panic. You choose growth over comfort. And you don't even notice it. Because it's who you are now. That's identity at work. Not loud, not boastful, but deep and lasting. So ask yourself this. Who are you becoming through the choices you're making daily? Not who you wish to become. Who your actions are shaping you into. Because if the actions don't align with the future version of you, it's time to adjust. Not just the habit, but the belief underneath it. Start saying it before you feel it. I am disciplined. I am focused. I protect my time. Because eventually, your actions catch up to your declarations. And those declarations begin to build something stronger than motivation ever could. Belief. And belief is where all lasting change is born. No more temporary fixes. No more external pressure. This time, you're building from the inside out. You're not becoming someone else. You're returning to the person you were always meant to be, before doubt and noise got in the way. And once you're there, once your new identity has taken root, something even more powerful happens. You stop asking if you can do it, and start asking what else you're capable of. That's where we go next. Because once your identity is solid, your potential is limitless. The next step isn't survival. It's expansion. There comes a point in every transformation when the work stops being about you. Not because you're finished growing, but because your growth has started to spill over. The fire that once only warmed your own hands now lights the path for others who are still walking in the dark. At first, Change is survival. Then it becomes habit. Then it becomes identity. But the highest form? It becomes impact. You'll know you've reached that level when people stop asking what you're doing and start asking how you became this version of yourself. When your presence speaks louder than your advice ever could. When someone watches the way you live and starts to believe they can rewrite their story too. And the wildest part? You didn't even try to inspire them. You weren't preaching. You weren't trying to teach. You were just doing the work. Quietly. Consistently. Authentically. And that quiet commitment created a ripple strong enough to touch people you've never even met. Because energy travels. Integrity resonates. And when someone sees you show up with purpose, they feel something. They may not know what it is, but they'll remember it. This is how legacy is built. Not through noise, but through alignment. Not through perfection, but through truth. When your inner world finally matches your outer actions, people feel it. And they respond to it. You become a mirror. A living reminder of what's possible. And suddenly, your life becomes permission for others to chase their own. That's impact. Not followers. Not applause. But awakening in yourself and in others. And it doesn't take fame or a platform. Sometimes the most powerful ripple begins with one small act. Showing up when it would be easier to quit. Choosing discipline when no one's watching. Being kind when it's not deserved. Protecting your peace without explanation. You don't need to shout to shift a room. Real power is felt, not forced. And here's the beautiful irony. The more you stop trying to prove something, the more people notice. The more grounded you become, the more magnetic your presence. Not because you're doing more, but because you're finally being who you were always meant to be. So if you ever wonder, is this all worth it? Remember this. Someone out there is watching you, hoping you don't give up. Not because they told you, but because your courage gives them permission to find their own. Keep going. Not for validation, not for credit, but because the world doesn't need another perfect person. It needs you raw, real, and fully awake. And now that the change has taken root and your presence begins to ripple outward, it's time for the final step, anchoring this new life so deeply into your rhythm that you can carry it through storms, silence, and every season to come. There's a moment in the process where discipline stops being a tool and becomes your natural state of being. It's no longer a checklist, no longer a fight. It's who you are when no one's looking. It's how you move even when the world goes quiet. And in that silence, you find your edge. In the beginning, discipline feels like resistance. You have to drag yourself to the gym. You force yourself to sit down and write. You battle the urge to scroll, to quit, to delay. You wrestle with your own patterns like they're wild beasts that refuse to be tamed. But then something shifts. The friction softens. The noise fades. What once required effort now happens without debate. You don't have to convince yourself anymore. You've simply become the kind of person who does the thing. Discipline, then, is no longer about pushing. It's about returning, coming back to your core. The path is embedded in your bones. You know the rhythm. You trust the work. You stop negotiating with excuses because you realize they don't speak your language anymore. And the beauty of this state? It's quiet. No fireworks. No announcements. Just consistency. Just presence. Just action, over and over and over again. Until the world looks up and wonders how you got here. And you smile, because you know, it wasn't a leap. It was 1,000 steady steps when nobody clapped. It was doing the hard thing in soft moments. It was showing up for yourself when no one else did. This is the sacred place where discipline becomes peace. It no longer feels like sacrifice. It feels like alignment. It feels like honoring the person you said you wanted to become, day after day, until you wake up one morning and realize you already are them. And here's the thing. You don't need the mood to be right anymore. You don't need motivation to light the match. You've trained your system to operate regardless of weather, emotion, or noise. You've become dangerous in the best way, unshakable, because you no longer rely on ideal conditions. You've learned how to dance with discomfort and still move forward. This is freedom. This is strength. So many people wait for the perfect window to commit. They wait for clarity, for the right tools, for the magical moment where it all makes sense. But you committed in the dark. You chose in the silence. And now the results are echoing louder than any plan ever could. That's the power of discipline, not as a cage, but as a compass. Not to restrict, but to reveal. It leads you home to the most powerful version of yourself. And the best part? You can carry it anywhere. No matter what the world throws at you, you've built a core so solid, it won't crack. You won't break. Because you didn't just do the work, you became the work. And now, it's time to move toward the final transformation, owning your time so fiercely, so intentionally, that not a single hour slips away unnoticed. Because the version of you who made it this far, they don't chase time anymore. They master it. There comes a moment in your growth where time stops being the enemy. You no longer feel like you're racing against the minutes, scrambling to do more, to fit more, to prove you're productive. That phase, it's gone. What replaces it is precision, intention, ownership. Because you've realized something most people never do. Time is not a resource you spend. It's a force you either submit to or shape. And when you master yourself, you stop reacting to the ticking of the clock and start directing it. This isn't about calendars or schedules. This is about presence. The ability to bring your full self into each moment, not half-scattered, not multitasking, not distracted. When you live that way, every minute stretches, every hour expands, and a single focused day becomes more impactful than a week lived on autopilot. You begin to see what truly matters, not based on urgency, but based on meaning. You cut the fluff. You stop negotiating with distractions disguised as obligations. You don't just guard your time, you elevate it. You treat it like sacred currency because now you understand. Once a second is gone, it never returns. You either used it to build or you lost it to noise. And the people around you, they feel it. Your clarity becomes contagious. Your presence becomes magnetic. You're not rushing through life, you're sculpting it. Every choice, every task, every yes and no, it all aligns now. Not just with your goals, but with your soul. Mastering time doesn't mean you do more. It means you mean more with what you do. It means every action carries weight. Every plan has depth. You stop confusing motion with meaning. Because now, even your rest is intentional. Even your silence is strategic. And here's the unexpected gift. When you live with that kind of clarity, time starts to serve you. Ideas arrive when they're needed. People show up at the right moment. Opportunities begin to feel like they were waiting for you. Not because of magic, but because of mastery. While others feel exhausted from chasing the hours, you become energized by what you've built within them. You no longer ask, where did the day go? Because you know exactly where it went and why. You've stepped into that rare air where time no longer controls you. You are the conductor now, and the rhythm you set? It's built not on hustle, but harmony. This is where you begin to lead your life like an artist, not a worker. You design your days with clarity. You defend your hours with strength. And you trust that by honoring each moment fully, the future will take care of itself. And now, having harnessed time and bent it into alignment with your purpose, there's only one final step left to make that progress eternal. Not a phase, not a project, but a lifestyle that carries your impact beyond the now. The world celebrates the explosive, the dramatic, the overnight success stories. But the truth is, legacies are not built in loud moments. They're carved quietly in repetition, in the quiet hours, the ordinary days, the relentless commitment to keep showing up. Consistency is not glamorous. It won't get you applause today. It won't always feel exciting. In fact, sometimes it'll feel like nothing is happening at all. But that's the secret. Because while the world sleeps on small steps, those steps are compounding. They're stacking. They're creating a force so powerful that one day, the results will speak so loudly no one can ignore them. Think of the ocean. It doesn't crash violently every second, but it moves. It flows. It erodes rock with nothing more than repetition. That's the power you're building. Not a single storm, but a current that never stops. Most people start strong and burn out. They sprint into something new, fueled by hype, only to give up when the motivation fades. But you're different. You've learned to trust the process even when the pace is slow. You've made peace with the grind, with the silence, with the unsexy rhythm of showing up. Because here's the truth. Those who win are not the fastest, they're the most consistent. The ones who build empires don't just work hard for a month. They commit for a lifetime. Their names are remembered not because of one brilliant act, but because of thousands of quiet ones no one ever saw. Every time you choose the work over the excuse, every time you say no to comfort and yes to progress, you're writing your story. A story of grit, of resilience, of endurance. You're not just chasing a dream, you're becoming the kind of person who can hold it. Consistency is how that happens. Not with bursts, but with beats. Like a heart that never misses. Like footsteps that don't skip. Like a flame that doesn't flare, but never goes out. And that's where the magic is. You become reliable. Not to others, but to yourself. You start to believe in you. Not because of a motivational quote, but because you've got evidence. Days, weeks, months of proof that you can do hard things. That you can stay the course. That you're not a phase. You're a force. Eventually, what started as discipline becomes second nature. You don't think about quitting anymore. It's not even in your vocabulary. You don't need to feel inspired. You are the inspiration. You've become the kind of person who does what needs to be done, even when no one's clapping, even when it's raining, even when you're tired. Because you know what's on the other side of consistency isn't just success, it's transformation. It's becoming someone you're proud to be. And now, with every consistent act, you're not just moving forward. You're building something unbreakable. A legacy not made of words, but of work. Not shouted, but proven. Next, we walk into the final truth. Distractions are not harmless. They're designed to derail the consistent. But those who guard their focus build things the scattered never will. In a world that's always buzzing, always pulling, always tempting you to do more, be more, and chase more, the real power isn't in doing everything. It's in choosing what to ignore. Because focus isn't a passive trait, it's a practiced discipline. It's the battle you fight every day against distraction, noise, and the seductive chaos of busy. The most successful people on earth don't have longer days. They don't have extra hours gifted by the universe. They've just mastered the art of elimination. They've become ruthlessly selective, not because they're arrogant, but because they know that every yes is a no to something else. When you say yes to what doesn't matter, you steal time from what does. When you check that notification out of habit, you lose 5 minutes of mental clarity. When you agree to a meeting out of guilt, you trade away an hour of deep work that could have changed everything. Success is not about having more opportunities. It's about protecting the ones that matter. And that requires sacrifice. It means turning down the good, so you can build the great. It means learning to disappoint others, so you don't betray yourself. Focus is not just about productivity. It's about honor. It's about staying loyal to your mission when the world offers you shortcuts, side quests, and shiny distractions that feel urgent, but are utterly irrelevant to your path. You will be misunderstood. People will say you've changed, that you're distant, that you don't have time for them anymore. And maybe they're right, because now, you're building something too sacred to be diluted. You're not accessible to everything anymore, and that's how it should be. Because your energy is finite. Your mind is limits. And your dreams? They deserve your full attention. Not fragments, not leftovers, but everything you've got. Focus is a weapon. When sharpened, it cuts through clutter, through confusion, through mediocrity. It makes you dangerous in the best way. Because while others scatter themselves across 10 things and finish none, you go deep on one and change your life with it. And here's the paradox. When you narrow your focus, your impact multiplies. You don't become less, you become lethal, laser sharp, purpose-driven, impossible to distract. You start choosing your hours like you choose your allies, with discernment, with clarity, with purpose. And soon, every part of your life aligns with your deepest goals, not your shallowest urges. It's not that life gets easier. It's that your path becomes undeniable. You're no longer wondering what matters, you know. And that knowing? That's your edge. That's your fire. That's the filter through which everything must now pass. So stop apologizing for your boundaries. Stop feeling guilty for saying no. Because every no to the noise is a yes to your greatness. Every ignored distraction is one step closer to the destiny you're building. Quietly, relentlessly, unshakably. And now, with focus honed, clarity sharp, and your attention weaponized, you're ready to step into the final truth. The one shift that turns daily effort into permanent transformation. Change is romanticized. People talk about it like it's a spark, a flash of inspiration, a sudden shift in the winds of fate. But here's the truth that most won't say out loud. Transformation doesn't happen in a moment. It begins with a decision, and it demands that decision again and again and again. You don't wake up one morning and become a better version of yourself by accident. You wake up tired, uncertain, maybe even broken, and you choose. You choose not to stay there. You choose not to shrink. You choose to stand up, even when your legs are shaking. And that choice? That's the seed, the beginning, the spark that will either fade or become a wildfire, depending on what you do next. The real transformation isn't the glow up on the outside. It's the quiet rebellion on the inside. It's the moment you decide you are no longer available for your own excuses. The day you refuse to let the past define your future. The hour you stop asking for permission and start taking ownership. And here's where it gets real. Choosing transformation is easy the first time. It feels powerful, inspiring. But transformation isn't about one choice. It's about thousands. Every day you wake up and recommit. Every hour you choose growth over comfort. Every minute you reject the story that says this is just who you are. Because you're not a fixed identity. You're not a product of your past. You are a process, an unfolding, a becoming, but only if you choose it. Again and again. There will be days when it's easier to fall back, when it feels safer to stay the same, when your old life calls to you like a siren song, promising comfort in exchange for your progress. And on those days, you must remember, change doesn't come wrapped in fireworks. It comes quietly, steadily, in your repeated decision to walk forward. And slowly, you start to see it. You're no longer reacting, you're responding. You're no longer rushing, you're intentional. You're no longer hoping, you're creating. And that's when you know transformation didn't happen to you. You built it, brick by brick, choice by choice. No one else will know how hard it was, how many times you wanted to quit, but you will. And that knowing, that's sacred, earned knowing, that's what no one can ever take from you. So today, choose again. Not because it's easy, not because you feel like it, but because you've already decided. The person you're becoming is worth every step it takes. This is not the end of your journey. It's the beginning of your becoming. Now go. And don't just change. Transform. Thank you for being here. If this message spoke to you, even just a little, hit like and subscribe so we can keep walking this path together.